The city wore a gloomy gray coat that morning. Thick clouds hung low, smothering the skyline, while the sound of relentless rain drummed like a heartbeat on rooftops, sidewalks, and windshields. Commuters hurried through the downpour with umbrellas held like shields, weaving through puddles and honking traffic. The world moved fast, indifferent. But one figure moved slowly, almost painfully so. At the edge of the crosswalk, an old man stood hunched beneath a tattered, upturned umbrella. His coat was soaked, clinging to his thin frame. He clutched a wooden cane in one hand, the broken umbrella in the other, trembling fingers trying to fix it, failing each time. Rain trickled down his forehead, and his shoes were nearly swallowed by a rising puddle near the curb. 26-year-old Alina sprinted around the corner, her thin blazer no match for the storm. Her heels clicked and splashed against the wet pavement. In her arms, she clutched a slim folder. Her resume, degree copies, and reference letters, wrapped tightly in a plastic sleeve, though the edges were already damp. She was minutes away from the most important job interview of her life, Miratech Corp., one of the few companies still hiring in a crashing economy. Her breath came in nervous bursts, her chest tight with anxiety. She had practiced answers in the mirror for days. Rehearsed her smile. Even borrowed her cousin's formal shoes. This was her shot. Her mother's hospital bills were mounting. Rent was overdue. Failure was not an option. As she waited at the red light, catching her breath, she saw him. The old man. Drenched. Forgotten. Struggling. For a moment, Alina looked away. Hundreds passed by him, some glancing, most not even seeing. She bit her lip and looked at her watch. 10:24 a.m. 6 minutes to her interview. She could still make it. But her eyes betrayed her heart. They returned to the old man, standing like a ghost in the storm. A voice inside her whispered, "If it were your father, would you walk past?" Before she could talk herself out of it, Alina stepped off the curb. "Excuse me, sir," she called gently. The man looked up, startled. Water dripped from the tip of his nose. His eyes were pale, rimmed with weariness, but they lit up with recognition at her voice. "Yes," he rasped. "Are you all right? Do you need help getting somewhere?" He tried to smile. "Just to the pharmacy at the corner. My legs aren't what they used to be. And this storm." His words trailed off, as if he wasn't used to people asking. Alina offered him her only umbrella. "Here. Take this. I'll walk with you." He stared at her in disbelief. "You'll get soaked." "It's all right," she said, already stepping beside him and offering her arm. "Let's go." He hesitated, then accepted her hand, and they began the slow, careful walk across the street. The cold rain pierced through her clothes, stinging her skin, but she didn't complain. Every step took her further from her goal, but closer to something else she couldn't yet name. The city moved on around them, cars swerved, horns blared, people hurried. But in that moment, under a borrowed umbrella in the middle of a storm, two strangers shared something rare. Humanity. By the time they reached the covered entrance of the pharmacy, Alina was soaked to the bone. Her hair clung to her cheeks, and her hands were frozen. She gently handed him the umbrella and offered a shy smile. "I hope you stay dry now." He looked at her with an expression she didn't understand yet, gratitude, yes, but something else. Something deeper. "Bless you, my child. Do you need help in return?" She shook her head. "Just say a prayer I get the job." Then she turned, heart pounding, and ran toward the glass towers in the distance, unaware that the man she had helped would be the reason her entire life was about to change. Alina ran like she was chasing time itself. Her soaked shoes squelched against the polished pavement as she neared the towering structure of Miratech Corporation, a glass and steel building that looked far too pristine to belong to the same rainy world outside. Her heart pounded not just from the sprint, but from fear, raw and urgent. Every second ticked louder in her ears. As she approached the glass doors, she caught her reflection, drenched hair clinging to her cheeks, makeup smudged, blazer soaked through and hanging heavy from her shoulders. Her carefully arranged folder of documents had water seeping through the edges, smearing the ink. She looked nothing like the confident, collected professional she had hoped to present. But she couldn't stop now. Alina pushed the door open and stumbled into the sleek lobby. The marble floors were spotless, the lighting warm, and the air smelled faintly of lavender and espresso. A young receptionist behind a wide desk looked up in surprise, eyebrows rising slightly at Alina's appearance. Hi, Alina stammered, brushing rain from her forehead. I'm here for the 10:30 interview. Alina Raymond. The receptionist's expression changed from surprise to hesitation. Oh. I'm really sorry, she said gently. The panel already left. Mr. Ahmed waited as long as he could, but they had to cancel the rest of the interviews because of the storm. Alina blinked, not quite understanding. What? But it's only 10:34, she whispered, glancing at the wall clock. I know. But with traffic delays and weather concerns, they decided to cut the schedule short. They left just a few minutes ago. A cold wave of panic washed over her, deeper than the rain that clung to her skin. No, please, she said, stepping forward. I ran all the way here. I had to stop to help someone. I swear I was just a few minutes late. The receptionist looked genuinely sympathetic but helpless. I understand, and I wish I could help. But I don't have the authority to reschedule. And to be honest, today was the final round. There's a hiring freeze starting tomorrow. Alina stood there, frozen. Her arms dropped to her sides, the file slipping slightly in her grip. Her eyes darted across the lobby, at the elevator she would never take, the hallway she would never walk down, the opportunity that had just slipped through her fingers. She had sacrificed her only umbrella. Her only chance. Her throat tightened as she moved away from the desk and sat down on a bench near the glass wall. Rain continued to beat against the windows outside, as if mocking her. For the first time in weeks, Alina let her shoulders fall. She had been so hopeful. So desperate. She had studied every detail about Miratech, memorized the company's mission statement, and practiced responses to potential questions late into the night. She'd even borrowed a relative's laptop to research past interviews. And now, all of it was for nothing. A tear slipped down her cheek, indistinguishable from the rain that still clung to her face. She didn't bother wiping it away. She thought of her mother lying in bed, the medicine bills on the table, the rent reminder that had arrived in her inbox just this morning. She thought of how hard she had tried to hold everything together, to stay kind, hopeful, decent, despite how cruel life had been lately. A cruel laugh bubbled up in her throat. Nice guys finish last, huh, she whispered under her breath. But even in her despair, a small voice inside her whispered, you did the right thing. She shook her head and curled her arms around her soaked folder. Right didn't pay bills. Right didn't buy medicine. Right didn't feed her mother. She looked once more at the elevator, the doors now closed, and sighed. She didn't know that they would open again, just for her. The elevator to the top floor of Miratech Corporation glided open with a soft chime. Inside the executive wing, everything was quiet, polished, and precise. The rainstorm outside was just a backdrop to this world of order and ambition. Floor-to-ceiling glass panels framed the skyline, and a hush of reverence hung in the air. This was where the real decisions were made, where the city's next innovation might be born. At the end of the corridor, past the frosted glass doors and minimalistic art, was the most understated yet powerful room of all, the office of Raymond Asif, founder and CEO of Miratech. A man who rarely appeared in public. A visionary known for his ethics but fiercely private nature. And right now, he stood by the window, his arms crossed, watching raindrops streak down the glass like tears of the sky. He was dry now, wearing a crisp navy suit, a pocket square perfectly tucked. The only sign of the storm he had weathered earlier was the damp umbrella folded neatly beside the leather chair behind his desk. His assistant, Nadia, stood quietly near the doorway, holding a clipboard. "Did you find her?" he asked without turning around. "Yes, sir," she replied. "Her name is Alina Raymond. 26. Bachelor's in Business Admin, top 5% of her class. Been out of work for a few months. Her father passed away last year, and she's caring for her mother, who's unwell. She was here for the 10:30 interview, arrived at 10:34. He closed his eyes briefly. And she was turned away. Yes. Mr. Ahmed left early with the panel. She never got to speak. He finally turned from the window, his expression unreadable, though something flickered in his eyes. Regret? Gratitude? Determination? "Bring her up to me," he said simply. Nadia hesitated. "Should I tell her who you are first?" He shook his head. "No. Let's see how she walks into a room without knowing she's being watched again." Downstairs, Alina still sat on the bench, cold and defeated, her hands wrapped around her soggy folder. She had nearly mustered the courage to leave when the receptionist approached with wide eyes. "Miss Raymond?" Alina looked up wearily. "Yes. You've been requested upstairs. The CEO would like to meet you personally." Alina blinked, confused. "The CEO? Me?" The receptionist nodded with a smile. "He asked for you by name." Alina stood, heart suddenly thudding again, this time not with panic, but something else, shock. Hope. She followed the assistant through corridors and into the elevator. As they ascended, her nerves churned wildly. Why would the CEO want to meet her, the drowned girl who missed her slot? The elevator doors opened to a world she had only dreamed of, the top floor. Smooth wooden floors, sleek lighting, and an atmosphere of hushed power. She was led to a door where Nadia greeted her with a professional smile. "He's expecting you. You may go in." Alina stepped inside cautiously, her heart pounding louder with each step. And then she saw him. Sitting behind a modern desk of rich walnut, glasses perched on his nose, was the same elderly man she had helped less than an hour ago. Except now, he was clean, composed, and radiating quiet authority. Her breath caught. "You," she whispered. He smiled, warm and knowing. "Me." Alina's mouth opened, then closed again. She took a step forward and shook her head, dazed. I didn't know. I'm so sorry, I didn't recognize you, and You helped me without knowing who I was," he said gently, rising from his chair. "That's what made it special." She looked down, ashamed of her wet clothes and ruined appearance. "I must look ridiculous right now." He chuckled. "You look like someone who cares more about others than herself. That's rare." She tried to speak, but emotion clutched her throat. He gestured to the chair across from him. "Come. Sit. Let's talk. You've already impressed me more than any resume possibly could." As she sat down, still trying to make sense of what was happening, she realized something quietly astounding. The moment that had felt like her lowest, was actually the beginning of something extraordinary. Alina sat across from the man she had helped just hours earlier, except now, he wasn't shivering beneath a broken umbrella. He was dignified, commanding, seated in the highest office of Miratech Corporation, the very company she had dreamed of working for. Everything in her brain screamed that this couldn't be real. He offered her a warm smile, one that carried the same kindness she had shown him in the rain. "Would you like some tea?" he asked. Alina blinked. Sure. Thank you." He pressed a button on his desk and requested a hot cup of tea through the intercom. Then he leaned forward, clasping his hands together thoughtfully. "I suppose you're wondering why I called you here," he said. Alina gave a nervous laugh. Among other things, yes. Mr. Raymond chuckled lightly. Earlier this morning, I was standing alone at the corner of Shari Faisal, completely drenched and invisible to the world. Dozens of people passed me. I was just another old man in the rain to them. He paused, looking her in the eye. But you stopped. Even though you were clearly in a hurry. Even though helping me meant you got soaked and missed your appointment. Alina lowered her gaze. I didn't know you were anyone important. I just couldn't leave you like that. And that, he said, voice firm and warm, is exactly why this conversation is happening. She looked up slowly, still confused. He reached into a drawer and pulled out a slim, cream-colored envelope with Miratex embossed seal on it. He placed it gently in front of her. She stared at it, heart racing. What is this? Your offer letter, he said. Alina froze. I don't understand. I didn't even get interviewed. You did, he replied softly. This morning. On that sidewalk. When you gave up something precious, your time, your chance, for a stranger. That told me everything I needed to know. Her fingers trembled as she reached for the envelope. She opened it slowly, half expecting it to be a dream. Inside was a letterhead with her name typed at the top. Position, Executive Assistant to the CEO. Start date, immediate. Monthly salary, PKR 300,000. Contract duration, 1 year, renewable. She gasped softly, a hand covering her mouth. This is real. He nodded. Very real. Tears stung her eyes before she could stop them. I don't know what to say. I came here today just hoping for a chance, any chance. I didn't even think I'd be let in again. You were let in the moment you chose kindness over ambition, he said. That told me who you are at your core. And I want people like that around me, people who act from compassion, not calculation. Alina swallowed hard, trying to speak past the lump in her throat. Thank you, truly. This means more than I can express. I've been trying so hard to keep everything together. My mom's sick, the rent's overdue, I've applied everywhere. He listened quietly, then spoke gently. I know what it's like to grow up without guarantees. That's why I built this company, not just to chase success, but to reward the values that matter. She looked at him with new eyes, not as a CEO, but as a human being who had once stood where she did. He poured her a cup of tea as the assistant brought it in. Take your time reading the contract, he said. Start whenever you're ready. I've got a feeling you'll fit in just fine. She grinned through tears, holding the warm teacup in both hands. A job. A second chance. A life turned in a single moment. And all because she had stopped in the rain. A week later, the morning sun rose like a quiet promise, casting golden rays over the skyline. The storm had passed, both in the city and in Alina's life. She stood outside the same towering glass building of Miratech Corporation, now wearing a crisp navy blue blazer, polished flats, and a new leather bag slung neatly over her shoulder. Her long hair was tied back in a sleek bun. The nervousness she once carried had softened into purpose. This time, she wasn't arriving late, soaked, or afraid. She was walking in through the front doors as a full-time employee. As she passed the receptionist's desk, the same young woman from that stormy day looked up and smiled warmly. Welcome back, Miss Raymond. Alina smiled back, heart fluttering. Thank you. She stepped into the elevator and pressed the button for the executive floor, her ID badge gleaming at her chest. A part of her still felt like she was dreaming, like she'd wake up any minute and find herself back in her tiny apartment, jobless and worried. But this was real. When the elevator doors opened, she was greeted by the polished stillness of the top floor. The same floor she had only visited once, when her life had changed forever. Her new workspace awaited just outside Mr. Raymond Osif's corner office. A modern desk, a personal computer, fresh office supplies, all arranged neatly by the admin team. On the desk was a small card. "Welcome to the team, Alina. You've already made a difference. R.A." She smiled, touched beyond words. That afternoon, as she took a short break, Alina wandered near the large windows overlooking the city. Rain clouds were gathering again in the distance, not fierce this time, but soft and calm. She looked down at the street corner below. The same spot where she had once seen an old man struggling in the rain. The same spot where she had paused, despite her own worries. She could see it all so clearly now, how life had pivoted at that single moment of choice. How kindness, even when inconvenient, had written the next chapter of her story. Behind her, Mr. Raymond stepped out of his office and joined her by the window. "Looks like the rain's returning," he said, his voice warm. Alina nodded. "It doesn't scare me anymore." He glanced at her with a faint smile. "It shouldn't. The last time it came, it brought you here." She turned to him, gratitude shining in her eyes. "Thank you for giving me a chance. I won't let you down." "I know you won't," he replied. "You've already proven more than most people do in years. And just so you know, this isn't charity. This is earned." Alina stood taller at those words. As the first drops began to hit the glass, she watched people on the sidewalk below pop open umbrellas, each of them unaware of how many stories were unfolding in the rain. She wasn't the girl on the bench anymore. She was part of something bigger now, a team, a company, a future. And it had all started with a choice to stop for someone who couldn't walk alone.